Hi Jack, thanks so much for joining me. We're gonna do a little intro for the AlmaLinux community to some of our board members, and you are my first one. So let's start with maybe what's got you into Linux or open source.
Yeah, so this is like the Genesis story, right? So
Yeah.
I was in school and we were they had some like science program for kids who liked science, and I was a kid who liked science.
Yep.
So one day they said that, as I vaguely remember it, if anyone wanted to sign up for like a like summer research thing, like we'd be working with like a local university, here at home, and you'd get to go into the lab and like like play with a bunch of cool stuff. And I was like, yeah, I'm all for that. So little did I know that 20 plus years later we'd still be on this ride, but I ended up doing that program in the summer. Was really cool. Got exposed to a bunch of stuff that we like. It wasn't computers weren't like so popular back then. Like home computers were not a thing yet. And I started off my journey actually using Solaris. That was the first like OS that I that I
Nice.
used. It wasn't even Linux, so it was like a real Unix.
Yep.
Use that, and just I was involved in that program for a few years moving forward, and using the computer and learning to program, and like just learning tech was a focal point of my life at that point, I guess. And I got to do all this like in a well-funded university computer lab. And so there was lots of Solaris, there was other Unix, and that's really how I got started using Unix, and using from there we like transitioned to Linux, because basically one summer, not that summer but a different summer, someone came into the lab with like a copy of Red Hat on floppy disks.
Nice.
And I was like, "Oh, what is this?" And they're like, "Oh, it's like Unix, but for like whatever it was, a x86 computers or whatever, like these home computers back then." And then I super annoyed my parents to get me a computer, which was really, really expensive back then.
Yeah.
And we didn't get it right away, but eventually we did. And I ended up installing Red Hat, and I ended up contributing to Red Hat. And, that's how we jumped down this rabbit hole.
That's amazing.
And
That's
the, the,
awesome.
the
And it
trip has never
eventually led
ended.
to Alma Linux, right?
Yes, and it led to a few stops along the way, including eventually working at Red Hat for quite a while, and working at other places, and getting involved in Fedora really, really heavily when that
Yeah.
was founded, and getting involved in the CentOS community, and eventually led to Alma. Yeah.
That's awesome. What do you think right now excites you most about what we're doing in Alma Linux, or where do you think, or where we're going to go in the next 5 years?
Uh, Honestly, I think the capability to be a little bit divergent from like the upstream or the classical upstream is really, really exciting. I mean, we've already seen, um, I'm a people pleaser, and we've already seen more than a few people react and respond to things like, re enabling hardware, and a bunch of other security fixes that the community was able to put out um, faster than upstream. So just being, it's like having your own identity, right?
Hmm.
It's like you can being a clone is easy, but having your own identity is hard. And I think in terms of that, technically, I think is very exciting. But then what's even more exciting to me is just the whole, like we bootstrapped the community from zero,
Yeah.
right? And just seeing the growth there, and seeing people come in and being able to build that community, and putting together those processes to manage our community, and to build our community, grow our community, like assist people. It's just, it's a lesson that it's something that I've been through before, but I think every time you do it, there's a new perspective to it, and you learn a new thing about people, and you bring your existing like background and experience in all of that to a new, like basically like a new set of clay,
Yeah.
like
It's a
in
new
your
it's a
hand,
new group of people every time.
Yeah, exactly. And I just think even though like there are still people that are connected from other ecosystems that you might have, had contact with or worked with before, but each community is like its own unique, like beautiful entity, its own animal,
Yeah.
right? And just being able to be a part of that and being able to, say that I helped bootstrap that and just really helping people every day on whatever journey they're on. I think that's been like a really amazing thing. Like that's part of what being on the board is on. It's being part of that dynamic process, right? Because
Hmm.
things come up and you try to basically turn the project into what you want it to be,
Hmm.
right? And I think we do that via the board and just being involved in that process. To me, that's like the painter painting the picture,
Hmm.
right? And it's something like so unique and so awesome. And I'm really just it's awesome to see that the way we started out and the way we decided that we're going in a certain direction. This is like what our structure is going to be. This is what we feel is best for community, and seeing how that's panned out and seeing how it's still developing. Like it's not, there's still governance stuff that's happening every single day, which is people might not realize that.
Yeah.
And I think that's what really excites me is like this is still evolving, right?
Yeah.
And it's still growing, and being able to put like a couple of brushstrokes on the canvas for me is like really really awesome part of life.
That's awesome. I You're obviously extremely passionate about open source stuff and Linux stuff in general, the enterprise Linux ecosystem. Is there anything, are there any other causes that you're passionate about?
Not absolutely nothing else, Benny.
Nothing else. Zero other things.
No, I mean, I'm a parent, so obviously you're passionate about your kids, and raising them is one of the great pleasures of life, and just seeing them develop and flourish. It's kind of the same thing as what I've done basically all my life, like in a community context, but now it's
Hmm.
like a lot more like macro and a lot closer to home.
Yep.
So definitely passionate about that, and
Awesome.
just really helping people, like volunteering in all types of things, like whether it's locally, whether it's in the open source community.
Hmm.
I just feel like life is too short to not help people, and a
That's
lot of
awesome.
people a lot of people can, even if they may not realize, sometimes they could use the help. So I
Hmm.
think that everyone needs to like feed their quarter into the machine to make the world a better place, and I guess that's my contribution.
Awesome. Well, cool. Thanks for joining me today, Jack.